What if that nagging feeling in the back of your neck was real? What if those hands reaching out from the dark that you believed were there were there? What if the monster in the basement really existed? And what if there was really something under the bed? Would you have the courage to face your fears?
Hello, brave souls. Tonight's story is called Reunion at the End of the World. I hope you enjoy. Part 1. The Outbreak. Jason woke up to the sound of sirens blaring outside his window. He shot up in bed, his heart pounding. Grabbing his phone, he saw a flood of emergency alerts about some kind of viral outbreak sweeping across the state. People were being instructed to stay inside and wait for further updates from the authorities. As he moved to the window, Jason was horrified to see chaos unfolding on the streets below. People were running and screaming, some of them staggering and attacking others in a frenzy. He watched in shock as a woman fell to the ground, surrounded by a group of assailants who began tearing at her flesh with their bare hands. Jason felt bile rise in his throat as the reality sank in. This was no ordinary virus, but something far more sinister. He dialed Brian's number frantically, praying his 12-year-old son was still safe at his mother's house across town. When Brian answered, his small voice was trembling with fear. "Dad, there are monsters outside trying to get in. I locked all the doors, but I don't know what's happening." "Listen to me, Brian," Jason said, his own voice shaking. "I'm coming to get you right now. Don't let anyone in, no matter what they say or who they sound like. Do you understand?" "Yes, Dad. Hurry, please." Swallowing hard, Jason quickly got dressed and armed himself with a baseball bat from the hall closet. He had no idea what was going on, but he knew he had to get to Brian at all costs. Taking a deep breath, he headed out into the nightmare unfolding in the streets. Part 2. The Trickery. The scene outside was like something from his worst nightmares. Fires burned in the roads, cars had piled up from horrific wrecks, and those same staggering, frenzied people were everywhere, attacking anyone in their path. Jason clutched his bat tightly, using back alleys and side streets to avoid as many of the crazed mobs as possible. After what felt like an eternity of terror and close calls, Jason finally arrived at the upscale neighborhood where his ex-wife Karen lived with Brian. The streets were strangely deserted, an eerie silence hanging in the air. He was about to spring to Karen's house when a familiar voice called out, "Jason? Oh, thank God you're here!" Jason spun around to see Karen herself hurrying toward him, looking disheveled but unharmed. Relief flooded through him as he rushed to embrace her. "Karen, I was so worried. Is Brian okay? Where is he?" Jason asked urgently. Karen pulled back, giving him a stricken look. "Oh, Jason, it's worse than we thought. Some of those things got in the house. Brian, he's been bitten." The words hit Jason like a sledgehammer to the gut. He felt the world spinning around him as he struggled to process what she was saying. No, that can't be. Where is he?" Tears streamed down Karen's face. "He's inside, resting. But Jason, he's changing. I've seen what happens after the bite. We have to put him out of his misery before he turns into one of those monsters." Jason froze, his mind utterly unable to accept those words. Put Brian out of his misery? No, there has to be another way. A cure, treatment, anything. He would never give up his son like that. Suddenly he noticed a strange, almost feral glint in Karen's eyes that made him take a step back. "You're not Karen," he breathed, gripping his bat tighter. A cruel smile twisted across his ex-wife's face, making her features look almost inhuman. "You always were too sentimental, Jason. That's why you'll never survive in this new world of ours." In a blur of motion, the thing that had been Karen launched itself at Jason with horrifying speed and strength. He swung the bat in desperation, cracking against its skull with a sickening crunch. It collapsed to the ground, unmoving. Jason stared at the broken form, his heart pounding. Whatever these things were, they could somehow take the shapes and memories of their former human selves to lure in their victims. And now one of them had Karen's face. He had to find his son before it was too late. Part 3. The Reunion. Jason raced to Karen's house, his bat at the ready. He had no idea what deceptions might be waiting for him inside. Taking a deep breath to steady himself, he slowly pushed open the front door and stepped into the entryway, senses on high alert. "Ryan!" he called out in a harsh whisper. "Ryan, it's Dad! Where are you?" There was no response except an ominous silence. Jason crept further into the house, checking each room with his heart in his throat. Finally, he reached the hallway that led to Brian's room. As he neared the closed door, Jason heard a faint sound, sobbing. He felt his chest constrict painfully as he recognized Brian's muffled cries. Steeling himself, he threw open the door, bat raised high. But the room was empty except for Brian, huddled on the bed and sobbing into his knees. At the sound of the door, his head whipped up, eyes wide with terror. "Dad!" The sheer relief and joy in Brian's voice was like a physical force that made Jason sway. In an instant, he had crossed the room and swept his son into a fierce embrace, feeling as if an immense weight had lifted from his heart. "It's okay, Brian. I'm here now. We're going to get out of here, you and me. I won't let anything hurt you, I promise." The words tumbled out in a rush as Jason held his child close, stroking his hair gently. He had made it. Against all odds, he had reached his son. Brian clung to him tightly, his tears soaking Jason's shirt. "I was so scared. Mom came home, but she wasn't herself anymore. She tried to... His small body shook with sobs. Jason pulled back, cupping Brian's face in his hands and staring into his eyes intently. "Listen to me. That wasn't your mom. Not really. Those things out there, they can make people shape somehow and use their memories against you. But we're going to get out of the city. Find somewhere safe to wait this out." Wiping his tears, Brian nodded bravely. Jason smiled, so proud of his son's strength. "That's my guy. Now, we need to move quickly and quietly, you understand? Stay close to me and do everything I say." As they crept back through the house, Jason felt a profound sense of purpose. All that mattered was getting Brian to safety, no matter what horrors they faced. With a surge of resolve, he led his son out into the night, leaving the forsaken streets behind as they set off to find refuge from this nightmare. And though the road ahead would be perilous, Jason knew, as long as they had each other, they could prevail against any threat. His family was alive, and that was reason enough to keep hope burning bright, no matter how dark the world became. Okay, bear with me. I am fully aware that this is a very cheesy zombie story, and I think I know the only reason I ended up doing a very cheesy zombie story is because Father's Day is tomorrow, and I have 5 kids of my own. Yeah, these kind of stories really hit home to me. The way I came up with the prompt was I had read a book called The Rising. It used very similar elements to this, where people still kept... So basically they would die, someone would take them over, basically some kind of weird force would take them over, and they would have access to all their memories, so they could trick people into opening doors. They could do all sorts of things. They could drive, they could shoot. They were basically just humans, but like unkillable humans. It was awful. Worst zombie apocalypse I've ever read. But it also had like a father-son thing too. Another reason why I had a hard time getting through that book was listening to a father talk to his son like a state over, or a couple cities over, whatever it was, and try to get to his son during the beginning of zombie apocalypse. The kid was little in the thing. My son was very little during that time too when I was reading it, and so I just kind of wanted a nice version of that, like a happy ending version of that, which is very off-brand for me. I am usually very much the bad ending kind of guy, the sad ending, like nobody wins at the end. But for this one, for Father's Day, I wanted to have this. So if you're a father, happy Father's Day. Hell, if you're a single mom, happy Father's Day. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day tomorrow, tonight. And as always, thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you guys next time. And remember to always face your fears.